Are you thinking of getting a cute little dog like Molly here? Do you have one on the way and now you're thinking, what do I need to do? What do I need to buy before the puppy or dog arrives? Well, this is a video for you. We will go through everything you need to do before the dog gets into your home. Let's go. Welcome back to another video with the beautiful Molly here. She's going to go to sleep, but we are going to talk about what you need to do before you bring your dog home. Now this might be a long video, so I have cut it up into pieces, things you need to do to prepare and things you need to buy. If you are just interested in what you need to buy for your dog, you can just jump to that section, but I do recommend you do watch the rest of the video, as there may be things that you might have forgotten that are important before the dog comes. If you're interested, also in the description below is a link to Molly's website, which has a whole list of everything you need to buy and some links to Amazon for suggested articles. So, without anything else, apart from saying please like and subscribe, let's get into it. So the first thing you need to prepare when you're bringing a new dog home is the house. Now, just like having a new child at home, when they start crawling and exploring, things can be dangerous. So what you need to do is puppy-proof your home. Now, what are we talking about here? You want to get into every single little bit, get on the ground and see, okay, what could the puppy access? What could they tug at? What could they bite? Because they do explore with their mouths. What could they do that might hurt them or hurt things that you don't want to be hurt? So, some examples for that. Cables. We'll have cables lying around for all the electronic things that we have in the house. If we have anything that is accessible to your new puppy, you need to hide that away. Either hide it away, put something in front of it, find a way to block it so the puppy can't get it, and start chewing, because obviously that would be very dangerous. Next thing to think about is in the kitchen. Where do you have your food? Do you have cupboards that closed door? Do you have everything open? What could the puppy access? What could the puppy jump up to if they smell some food and they want to get some food? So have a think about that. Maybe move things to different areas. Also, if you have plates at the bottom or glasses that things that might break, you might want to cover them up or move them. And definitely the dog food and dog treats, wherever they're going to be, they need to be out of the way so the dog cannot access them. This obviously depends a lot on the size of the dog you're getting. With Molly, a toy poodle, you just need to put things a little bit higher and they're never going to get there. If you have a bigger dog, you need to really think about that. Next example is houseplants. Now, having houseplants is beautiful and also kind of good for the health, like this here. But did you know that some houseplants are poisonous for dogs? So you can look up which ones are and which ones aren't, but best, especially at the beginning, just to keep them out of the way of the dogs. Adult dogs will generally avoid poisonous things, but puppies, they like to explore with their mouths, and therefore they may chew on something, and then that may be a trip to the vet for you, which obviously we don't want. So keep them out of the way. With that, we're also talking about the garden. If you have a garden, which is great, make sure it is enclosed. There's no gaps in the fence that they might run away. Make sure there is no plants that may be poisonous to them or anything else that might be hazardous. So just have a quick scan of the garden to make sure it is a safe place to let them roam free. The other part of that is if you are using fertilizers or pesticides or anything else, a little salt to get rid of the snails. Be careful. Make sure that the dog cannot access them and decide, okay, I'm going to try this, because obviously it will not be good for them. The basic idea is to go around the whole house and decide, okay, where can the puppy go? Where could it sneak into? What damage could it do to the house or itself? And prepare for that. Puppy-proof your house. The next thing to do to prepare the house is pick a place that's going to be the dog's place, where it's going to sleep, where it's going to have its bed, where it can relax. It's a nice, safe place where it always knows, okay, this is where I go to relax when no one else is around. Now you may think, okay, I want the dog to sleep with me in the bed or something like that, but you also want to pick a place because maybe the bedroom is not accessible during the day when no one's there, or you don't want the dog just hanging around there. Pick a place where you can leave the dog and the dog can be happy and know this is my place, this is my home. That is where you're going to put the bed or the crate, depending on what you buy. You then want to pick a separate place for food and water and make sure there is always food and water there in that place, so they know wherever they are in the house, they can go there, and that's where water can be. You can have several places, but make sure you have at least one place where that's going to be. Decide on that. The next thing you need to decide is, are there going to be places where you don't want the dog to go? There may be a nice study with an antique rug on the floor that you don't want the dog making a mess of, or there may be furniture that you don't want the dog biting on and you don't want them to enter. Or you have a studio, you work from home and you don't want to be disturbed with the dog coming in and out. Look around the house and go, where do we not want the dog to go? Decide on that and then be consistent with that when the dog arrives. Make sure the whole family knows that this place is out of bounds. We did it for Molly, where we didn't want her upstairs. And so whenever she went to go up the stairs, we said no, and we told her to stay. And so now, even now when she wants to be with us, but we go upstairs, she waits at the bottom of the stairs because she knows and she's never been allowed to go up the stairs by herself. If you have decided where you don't want them to go, you need to decide, okay, how are you going to enforce that? If you have doors, you just need to make sure they're constantly closed. Or there may be areas, for example, the stairs, where you want little child gates or puppy gates. You can get some little cloth that stops it from going up and down the stairs, at least at the beginning, until they've learned. So these are all the things you need to think about when preparing your house. The next part is the fun part of buying things for the dog. Now, while it is fun, it can get quite expensive, so I am going to go through here the absolute essential items that you will need to buy before the dog comes, and then I'll go through a few more things that you may want to buy in the future, but are not necessarily right at the beginning. First up, a crate or a bed. You need to buy somewhere where the dog is going to sleep. Even if the dog is going to sleep on the bed with you and you know that for certain, they're not always going to be there. So you want to have a bed or a crate where they can lie down during the day and have their naps. Now, do you want a bed or a crate? I would say both is good. I will talk about crates. I may even do a video about it. But I highly recommend getting a crate at least at the beginning. They are super useful for house training, and you can see that in this video here. But the main thing is that they keep the dog safe when you cannot directly supervise them. Puppies are like children, young babies. You don't keep them in a bed where they could fall off. You keep them in a cot with barriers so they don't hurt themselves. The same thing with a crate. You may decide to get a bigger dog pen so they can at least run around a little bit. But if you can have a crate, and when you're not directly supervising, you have to do some washing up, you have to do some cooking, whatever it is, you can have them in the crate. They will sleep. They sleep a lot at the beginning, but they will sleep, and you know that they are safe. You know they are not roaming around either having accidents in the house or causing more problems. So I highly recommend it. Or you can buy a bed, but you need somewhere where they can go. Now, if you're buying a crate, I do recommend the wire ones with a divider. The reason being, especially if you have a puppy, the puppy's going to grow. So rather than having to buy bigger and bigger crates as they grow, you can put the divider in. It should be that they can just about turn around and lie down comfortably. But if it's too big, they decide, okay, I'm going to go and pee in that corner and sleep in this corner, and then it defeats the purpose. So have it there. If you have the divider, as they grow, you can move the divider until eventually you have a crate that they can use all the time. For the bed, there are lots of options. The only thing I do recommend, something that's washable, because messes are made, especially at the beginning. So something that's machine washable just makes your life easier. Next up is bowls for the food and the water. Now, of course, you can use bowls that you have in the house. However, they are liable to break, so something a bit more sturdy is recommended. You have a few choices. You can get some cheap plastic ones, which don't cost a lot of money. However, especially if you have bigger dogs, they may get chewed at, which causes problems. It may break off some plastic and go in the mouths, which is obviously dangerous, but also brings bacteria into it, and they kind of need to be thrown away, so you need to buy a new one. They're also not machine washable, so you'll need to wash them all by hand. Upgrade from that is metal or even ceramic. Metal is great because they're not likely to break. They're machine washable, and so you can keep using them a lot. I do recommend the ones that have the rubberized base. If you have a very enthusiastic eater and they're moving the food or water all around, then it's going to just make a mess. So something that keeps it in place is always a good idea. At the beginning, one set is probably enough. Later on, you'll want to buy some more just so you can wash some and use others. And as they get worn, or just have some different styles. It's up to you. There are different types, so you can have the slow feeder ones, which make it slightly more difficult to eat, and therefore the dog eats slower. Or there's the automatic feeders that can feed them automatically if you're away. These are things that maybe you want to get later on. If you decide your dog is something that needs to be slowed down, you can get that. If you're going to be away and you need an automatic feeder, you can get that. But at the beginning, just a nice simple bowl for the food and the water. And in that bowl, you will need to put food. You need to buy some dog food. Now, I do recommend, especially if you're getting a puppy, rather than choosing your own brand, at least at the beginning, speak to the breeder or the shelter or wherever you're getting the dog from. What food are they eating right now? The reason for this is that if you start changing the food, it may give them an upset stomach. And with all the stress of moving to a new house and having all this new experience with a new family, you don't want to give them any problems. So if you keep with the same food, it will just help that. If you do want to use another brand, you can do. Just transition them slowly, start giving them a little bit at a time in the regular food, and then increase the percentage as you go until you have the new brand only. This will just help their stomachs as you do the change. Also, when you're buying, be careful because there's different types. There are specific ones for puppies, and then young adults, older adults, very old dogs, and also with certain health conditions. They're all called the same thing, just with the extra puppy. Then there's the extra small, medium, large, depending on the size of the dog. Just make sure you're getting the right one for your dog. As well as the food, you will want to get them treats. Now, there are a lot of options for treats. Try some, see what the dog likes, keep trying. They will probably love all of them anyway. A few recommendations from me. If you are especially having a puppy, when they're teething, they'll want to chew things. So if you can, get some hard chews, not necessarily bones, but something where they can chew and take their time. These are great because it does help their gums and help with the pain, but also you can give them and they can be occupied for 10-15 minutes while you have other things you need to do. Once they get older, something like the Denti-Sticks, Molly loves them. They're great for the dental hygiene and keep them occupied for 5 minutes or so. You'll then want treats for training your dog. At the beginning, you can just use the kibble, but if you have some treats to help out, something a bit special, then it can accelerate your training. With bigger dogs, you can get the biscuits. These are really handy because they're dry. You can keep them in your pockets. You can do things so when you're outside, you can also do some extra training. If you have a small dog like Molly, the biscuits are just too big. You give them a couple and they're full. It's hard to do training like that. What I do recommend is the longer ones that you can just rip off tiny, tiny little pieces. All they really want is that taste in their mouth. So you can take tiny, tiny little pieces and you can do a bit more training per day without them getting full and bloated. Next up is a collar or harness and a lead. There is a ridiculous amount of choice. You can go for simple ones, you can go up to designer ones, and everything in between. At the beginning, you just need something simple. However, especially if you're getting a new puppy, you might not know the size of that puppy before you buy it. So one thing I do recommend is either buy it after you pick up the puppy. You can pick up the puppy, go straight to a pet store, try something on and buy it straight away. It may be that the breeder, for example, the breeder where we got Molly, sells harnesses and leads, so you can buy them, try them on at there before you even leave the breeder. Or check the return policy of any leads that you do buy. If you can then buy maybe a couple of different sizes. If you buy it just a couple of days before, you should have time to then bring it back and get a refund for anything that doesn't quite fit. The other thing just to check, in some countries, it is the law to have a tag with details on it. This depends by country, so make sure you know in your country what the law is. You can also ask your vet what information needs to be on this tag. Eventually, and in Italy, I know they get a microchip, and so everything can be scanned and they can find out all the details. But in some countries, you have to have that ID tag. Now, there are some fancy tags and fancy collars that have GPS trackers and everything like that. And if it's something you're interested in, you can always go for it. But it's not necessary, especially right at the beginning. You can just stick with the ordinary lead and harness or collar. For the lead, I personally prefer the extendable ones. This means that if we're in the park, it gives Molly a bit of a chance to run around when it's safe to do so, and then I have more control when we're walking next to the road. It is personal choice, so they're a little bit more bulky to carry around, and you may prefer just the standard lead. Next up, very quickly, you will always need poop bags and pee pads. Poop bags definitely you'll always need. You just need something simple. I get mine from Amazon Basics. Just something you can always carry around. They often come with a little pouch thing where you can keep them. Personally, I just keep them in my pocket. But you may prefer something that you can attach to the lead or attach to your bag or whatever it is. There's loads of different designs, but you just want something simple really. I just get the bags and keep them in my pocket. The other thing is the puppy pee pads. These are essential at the beginning, especially if you're doing the crate training. You will want to have them in the bottom of the crate, so just to stop them making a mess of the crate. Once you do the house training, and hopefully it will be fast house training, you can slowly transition and then you won't need to buy any more. However, if you are doing house training where they will be doing their business in the apartment because you can't bring them out all the time, you will need to keep buying these, so having a stockpile is always good. Next up, we have grooming products. There are lots of important things, especially if you have a toy poodle like Molly, that you need to take care of them. The first thing is a dog brush. Poodles especially, they need to be groomed every day. You want to be making sure that they don't have their matted fur, but all dogs, they will need some grooming. Other dogs that do lose their fur, especially when they get to the summer and they're shedding their fur, you'll want to be able to brush them out and get rid of all the fur so they're not feeling uncomfortable. Next up, nail clippers. Now this is something that you can go to a groomer and get them to do it. However, it's easier and cheaper just to do it yourself. I do recommend though, either ask the vet how to do it and for some tips, or there's some videos on YouTube of exactly how to do it, because if you do it in the wrong place, it can cause them pain. So just be careful with that. Next up, if you're going to wash them, dog shampoo, make sure you get specific dog shampoo so it's protected. You can also get puppy shampoo that is a little bit more delicate. If you don't want to have to wash them, you can also get some dry shampoo which will clean the fur without getting them all wet and having to dry them out. Also, you'll want to get a toothbrush and toothpaste. Now, toothbrush, you can just have the normal style, or you can have the one that goes on your finger and then you put it in your mouth, depending on how brave you are. Toothpaste, make sure you get dog toothpaste because human toothpaste will be bad for them. Dog toothpaste, they can have lots of different flavors. Peanut butter, chicken, something the dog will love, and hopefully make cleaning the dog's teeth easier. After that, something that I highly recommend are dog wet wipes. Whenever you go outside and getting muddy, getting dirty, having something by the door where you can just wash their paws and make sure they're nice and clean so you keep the house clean is very important. And also if you're going out somewhere or going to the car, you don't want everything to get dirty. So just having some wet wipes just to clean them off, or if they make other little messes, is really important. Next up, the fun one is toys. Now, toys, there are millions of options. Now, at the beginning, you don't need millions, just a couple of things to keep them occupied. And then later on, there'll be plenty of birthdays, Christmas parties. People might buy things for your dog, and you can gradually grow your collection. Here are some different options that I do highly recommend. First one, as we spoke about before, puppies and their teething, they will want things to chew on. So if you can get something that they can really chew and get their teeth into, just to soothe their gums, then it'll help a lot, and it'll help you whenever they're trying to bite you. You can give them that toy and then they can start chewing on that. So something that they can chew on. Next one is something I call an independent toy, something that will keep them occupied for a little while. Now, the great example is a Kong. I'm sure there are other examples, but we got this, and it is a fantastic thing, not only for chasing and fetching, but also what you can do is put their food inside and then give it to them, and then they will knock it with their nose and mess it around, and as they do, the food will gradually come out, and then it's a nice way of feeding them and keeping them busy without them just going in the bowl. Other things that you can do, and I haven't done it personally, but I've seen other videos on it, is you can put food in it with some water or even just some peanut butter, and then put it in the freezer, freeze it, and then bring it out on hot days like an ice lolly. You give it to the kids and give it to the dog, and then they will lick that for 20 minutes and be occupied and be happy while you have other things to do. Next toy is to get something that they can play fetch with, but you can basically have anything like that, but a nice ball to play fetch with, and something to play tug of war with, something that they can grab onto and you can grab onto, and you can have some fun times playing tug of war. An outdoor ball or something that you can throw, a frisbee, anything that the dog can chase. If they can run around freely, to give them the exercise, and depending on how active they are, you can even get the long launcher. You can throw the ball and get them to chase it. Anything else, you can always add to it. You can always keep buying toys, and many people do. But eventually, if you have too many, they might get bored. So what we do is we just have a drawer, and we have a couple of toys out, and then every now and again we'll choose a new toy, and she's very excited because she hasn't seen it in ages, and it's almost like something new for her. So we've now gone through all the absolute essential items that you need to buy. The next items I'm going to talk about are things that might be essential for you depending on your situation, or the extra bits that you may want to add on later on. We spoke about it earlier, but with the house proofing, maybe you want to get the child gates or the puppy gates to stop the puppy getting into certain areas of the house. If not, something like a puppy playpen, you can get a big wire section there where they can have a little bit of fun and be a little bit free, not just in their crate, but they are safe and they can't get out into other areas of the house. Next up, depending on how you're traveling, if you have a car, you'll want some way of traveling with the dog. With Molly here, she'll sit on my lap just like this, or someone else's lap if I'm driving, and that is usually enough. You can also get specific dog harnesses. You can maybe if you have a big dog and you want them in the back, you want the fitting to make sure that they're not jumping around. Also, for most dogs, you'll want some sort of blankets, so if they've been running around in the field, they're not going to make your car too dirty. If you're traveling in other ways, there are extra bits you'll want. There is a great water feeder where you can give them water and they can drink it, and then you can press the button and it takes the water back in, so you don't need to waste the water. You can get dog bowls that fold up into a tiny little space, all sorts of travel things. Also consider travel bags if you are going to go on a plane or a train or something like that, to have a travel bag with you. But if you are going to travel a lot with your dog, then it's something that you may need to consider. Blankets. Specific dog blankets, there's probably not much difference to the blankets you have at home, but maybe you don't want them to get covered in fur. You'd rather keep them for you. At the beginning, you can just use your own blankets, but if you want extra bits to go in the car or in the crate, then you can use a dog blanket. Next up is clothing. Not an essential item at the beginning, but depending on where you live, if it is very cold in the winter or very wet, you may want to consider buying some things that will keep them warm, keep them dry, but obviously that massively depends on where you live and the time of year. So something to consider. The last thing is products that the vet might want you to buy. This obviously depends on what area you live in and the type of dog. There may be things like pastils that protect your dog from insect bites and diseases that they may give you. So just speak to your vet and see what they will consider. So that is it for everything that you need to buy your dog before you get them. It is a lot of stuff. If you're interested, in the description below, as I said before, there is Molly's website, a link to everything that you need to buy, everything I've just said, recommendations also for Amazon, but you can buy them anywhere you want, your local pet store, wherever you want. But make sure you get these things, and then the extra bits you can end up buying later. Okay, so that was quite a long section. The next section is on preparing yourself. You've bought everything you need for the dog. You've prepared your house. It's nice and safe and a good environment for your puppy. The next thing is to prepare yourself. Do you know how to look after a dog? Have you had dogs before? If so, maybe you already know what you're doing, but if not, you'll want to do a bit of research. Do you know how to train a dog? As mentioned, we have a video on house training, which want to begin on day one. You don't want to get a few weeks in and then go, okay, maybe I should think about this, because then it's going to make it much more difficult. So before the dog arrives, understand, what do I need to do to look after the dog? Now, there's lots of things you can do. You can get books. There is one recommended down below. You can watch lots of YouTube videos. I have lots of videos on my channel of things to do, but there's so many other videos on what to do with your new puppy and how to look after them. At the end of the day, the happiness of your dog is going to depend a lot on how you are as an owner. So if you want your dog to be happy, you want to be the best owner you possibly can. And that means knowing what to do when your dog arrives. Now, in terms of knowing what to do when the dog arrives, the next section is also super important, and that is finding a vet in your area. Have a look in your local area, speak to other dog owners where they go, what they recommend. Find somewhere that's close enough for you to get to and go and visit. Even before the dog comes, they should be happy to see you. They'll answer any questions on what needs to be done with your new puppy, your dog, how they work. You'll then want to find out when the opening times are, phone numbers for emergencies, anything that happens to the dog. You will also want to take them to the vet in the first few days. A couple of days after you take the dog, take them to the vet. Just get a general health checkup, make sure they are super healthy. Also, they will know when to get the vaccines, which is super important as a puppy. And they will be able to answer any questions that may have come up in the first few days. Maybe the puppy has had an upset stomach, and they can deal with any issues or any questions that you have. Last thing to do with that is pet insurance. Dogs can be very expensive, especially if they have health issues. It's not something absolutely essential, but something to consider. Is it worth spending a little bit every month to make sure that my pet is covered just in case something happens? Look into the products, speak to your vet, see what they recommend, but just make sure that you're covered for any issues that might happen. That was a rather long but hopefully complete video on what you need to do when you have a new puppy. If you have any questions or comments, or you think there's something else that's super important, please comment it down below. I will put the most important bits in a pinned comment at the top. If you haven't made it this far, please check out Molly's website. Also, we have made a few items available with Molly's adorable face on it. Mug, pair of socks, or notebook. If you do want this, you can check out the link in the description, or go to our channel page on the store and you'll see all the items there. A nice little gift for someone perhaps, and seeing everyday Molly's face. Thank you. If you've made it this far, please like the video. It really helps us a lot. Subscribe if you want to see more. We'll have more videos of how to look after your puppy coming up, and also some more cute videos just with the cute Molly toy poodle. And until then, we'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.